The Women's Leadership Institute in the Auburn University College of Liberal Arts is pleased to present Leaders Educating Through Discussion. We hope you will take a moment after you watch our presentation to add your own voice to the dialogue on our website, auburn.edu/womensleadership.
Well, I'm so pleased to be at Auburn University, and as we all have our life stories, I have mine too, and I'm probably one of the few people in this room that actually attended a four-room schoolhouse with 8 grades. And so, but it goes to show you, you just never know where you're going to end up. And in terms of, I'm a first-generation college graduate, very proud of it. Also very proud that I was raised by a single mom. My father died when I was a year old, and she raised 3 children and worked in a kitchen for 36 years. And she always told us that hard work and education could take us far enough. And we really did believe in her because we were very fortunate in terms of our education. And very fortunate, as I often tell faculty, is it's important for us to give back, because if it hadn't been for scholarships, my brothers and I would probably have never had that opportunity to attend college. And that college education really did make the difference. And in fact, I would say I didn't know what a PhD was. But I had college professors that kept saying to me, you just need to continue to go to school. And guess what? I listened to them, and I enjoyed school. And I often told my 2 sons, I've been married 40 years, I have one son that's 35, and he said, are you really strange, Mom, that you enjoyed school that much? And I said, I sure did, and I'd go back to school today if given the choice. And maybe that's one reason I stayed in higher education all my life. I've been very fortunate in being in one of my institutions, holding the title as a woman, as the first woman as in a distinguished professor role, first woman dean of a major college at 2 institutions, and now the first woman provost here at Auburn University. But I really don't think that, as I look back, that I had very many female mentors, that it was really that hard work and many others that believed in me. So it wasn't what I was able to do, it was really what I was able to get others to do working with me. And so fortunately for me, in thinking about leadership, and that's the theme of your conference here and your work, about in 1992 I'd been directing a center and doing a lot of outreach work with my colleagues in the community. And another colleague at North Carolina State said he was going to write a book on facilitating leadership in local government. And he called and said, you know, you have an outstanding local government leader in your metropolitan area, and she would be a great focal point for a chapter in the book. So he said, would you be willing to write the chapter? And I said, of course. So I learned a great deal from doing the research on her style. In fact, she was fortunate enough in being in that position 14 years and was one of the keynote speakers at one of the national conventions one year. And as I listened to her and watched her actions, I thought, well, what's made her so successful? And so I just wanted to say that I think this concept of facilitated leadership works very, very well in higher education as I've gone through these administrative roles, because we are all about teamwork, shared governance, and a good facilitative leader is first and foremost a good listener, listens to others, is analytical, strategic thinker, problem solver, mediator. I learned as one of the local government officials that was highlighted in that book said that she spent a great deal of her time on a daily basis mediating conflicts. She said, I didn't always know what all these conflicts were all about, but I knew how to convene them. They'd come to the room if I told them they needed to come to the room and solve the problems. And she said, sometimes I would just sit in the corner and do my knitting and say, you sit at that table and talk to each other until you solve that problem. And I thought, wasn't that an interesting approach to take? And I'm not so sure a male would be willing to, first of all, knit, but do that type of convening. Facilitating leaders are also consensus builders, but also decision makers. And I'm sure you've heard in the sessions that have to be a change agent, a risk taker, good communication, sharing of information. You know, I often say in the role that I've had as deans or as provosts, there really are no secrets in higher education. It's a public institution. The only thing that you need to keep confidential are the personnel decisions. But sharing as much information, if people want information, share it with them. And finding ways to share. We used to do, in one of my colleges along the way, we had every Friday afternoon, my assistant sent out an email, and anyone could submit their accomplishments or whatever they wanted to put on that email, just general information. And it really did bring the college together a great deal, just reading about each other on this, the COLA email, we called it, because we were a college of liberal arts. A good facilitating leader is really focused on others, and I think that Ms. Newton talked about many times women excel at that because we played a very nurturing role along the way. Is the facilitating leader then not only focuses on others, but empowers others instead of taking credit for themselves. In fact, one of the quotes in this book that we put together of edited reading said, "You can accomplish anything if you don't worry about who takes the credit." And often you find facilitating leaders, and I think you mentioned this earlier here today, it's not about I. It's about we. Because really, one leader is probably not going to be able to accomplish that much himself or herself. And in fact, in teaching some courses on leadership over the years, we used to use a book on followership. You know, if you're going to be a good leader, you have to have followers, and to be a good follower, you have to be a good leader. So but followership is very important. Surround yourself then with good people that are goal-oriented. Empower them. Always try to avoid personal conflicts, and do not personalize any of the work. I mean, it is not, if you're goal-driven, it's about what you accomplish for the institution, what you accomplish for your unit. It's not necessarily about what you accomplish yourself. You can usually be measured not in terms of your accomplishments per se, but what you can get others to do. I've often found, too, in some of my own research on this, that where women tend to excel is they tend to be intuitive in their judgments, very intuitive. And as you listened, if you were graduation just week before last, Tim Cook, COO of Apple, was talking about how being intuitive was so important in his position. Also, it's all about good judgment. You know, every day that's what we have to do is make decisions that really are important in terms of good judgment. I often say that in terms of agreements or disagreements, we just agree to disagree, and then we've agreed, so we move on. And that, I think that's worked very well. And oftentimes, what I've read too is women tend to be less hierarchical. It's more like the spider web, and women tend to be at the center, and they weave this network out there, and they use that network as they make decisions, as they work with others, and as they empower others. So I do think it's in the years that I've been involved in administrative positions, it's a different management style. But I think it's one that lends itself to higher education. And I can remember being in a session probably 25 years ago where I heard the president of Goddard College at the time speak and said, "The leaders in higher education in the future will be women because they understand how to nurture and bring others along and get buy-in, and that's what's going to be needed in higher education." So, go out, do well, and just as I say, I would have never dreamed that I'd been in a provost position at Auburn and been dean of 2 institutions. You never know where you're going to be from year to year, and you just don't know that there's going to be many leaders needed across this country in the future, and you will be one of them. Persevere and move forward. That's it, Anna.